Hard to believe you're the Imperial Princess, Loa. Wayne started, attempting to get the ball rolling. Did you know about me and Nanim from the very beginning? Of course, Lowelmina nodded. I mean, you were pretending to be commoners, but it's not as if you went to great lengths to hide your true identities. Eh? I was officially studying abroad in the Empire as the Crown Prince, so I guess it'd be obvious if you tracked my movements. Plus, I used my real name, since it would be a pain in the ass to change it. In the first place, all records of their enrollment were supposed to have been wiped from the face of the earth upon their return to Natra. Wayne had no idea what happened after they left. I was more concerned that you'd find me out, especially because your network of spies in the Empire is expansive. Nanim groaned, vexed that she'd been unable to expose the identity of the girl who was close to her master. To tell you the truth, I would have confided in you if you were upfront with me. That's why I asked Nanim if you were actually commoners once. I remember that. Right, and you said yes. Lowelmina faced her. Nanim Raleigh, why would you lie to your dear friend? For a second, her glare was dreadful enough to make blood curdle. Off with your head if you dare give me an excuse, it silently expressed. But Nanim was unfazed. Why, I didn't lie at all. As the one working at the side of the Crown Prince, she was familiar with being on the receiving end of pressure. It was just a mistake, Nanim declared with pride. If we're friends, you'll forgive me, right? Your Imperial Highness, Princess Lowelmina Earthworld. They stared each other down for a few more seconds before Lowelmina broke into a wide smile. Of course, Nanim. Oh, I love that about you. May I give you a hug? You always try to pick fights with potential playmates. I think you really ought to do something about that. Hey, don't hug me before I've given my consent. It's part of my personality. Lowelmina squeezed Nanim with all her might. Wayne shrugged as he watched the duo. Talk about a real pain in the ass. You're one to talk, Nanim communicated via glare, which he pretended affected him less than a gentle breeze. Right, I haven't expressed my appreciation to you for figuring out my intentions and responding appropriately. Oh, you mean at the banquet. They were referring to Lowelmina telling Wayne that at the soiree that the envoys belonged to her brothers. It had been code for, my brother's eyes are everywhere, meaning it would be difficult to meet behind closed doors unless he was proactive. When Wayne realized this, he prepared the trunks with secret openings and snuck into Lowelmina's room with Nanim. No thanks needed. But now that you've called us here, you have to be honest with us. Tell me the real reason why you came all the way to Natra under the guise of a potential union. Yes, of course, Lowelmina nodded. Wayne, let me be frank with you in my proposal. Do you want to steal the Empire with me? Silence fell on them. The trio exchanged glances, which tangled together in an intricate web and sprayed sparks through the still air. Wayne was the one who finally spoke up. Loa, are you suggesting we oust the three princes and put you on the throne? Precisely. Geez, you're asking for the impossible. Am I? Lowelmina feigned ignorance. Wayne turned to look at her and shook his head. I'm assuming you know the amount of power that we possess as a nation. You can search high and low, but you'll never find enough strength for us to go against the Empire. Sure, if the Empire unleashed its full might, it could erase this kingdom from the face of the continent. But, Lowelmina continued, that's a big if. I'm sure you've heard of our internal state. With this battle between brothers for the throne, the Empire cannot function at its full capacity. Wayne didn't reply, but his face said he knew this to be true. Allow me to recount the events leading up to this moment. I'll start from the very beginning. The catalyst for this situation was our late father becoming ill. That's the Earthworld Emperor, Lowelmina started. His condition was serious enough to cloud his consciousness and left him unable to stand or speak. Performing his administrative duties was out of the question, which meant it was only reasonable to find a representative to act in his stead. But the Emperor had yet to announce a successor, and the palace fell into complete chaos. It was here that Nanim chimed in. This has bothered me for some time. Why didn't he name a successor? I've heard a number of rumors, but I can't tell which one is true. I've never asked him directly, so I can only speculate. This should be taken with a grain of salt, but I wonder if it has something to do with the events leading up to his ascent to the throne. Nim tilted her head quizzically, and that would be. He had many brothers, which placed him far down the line of succession, but he couldn't give up on his aspirations for the throne. Only when he demonstrated his abilities was he recognized as a worthy heir. He always said adversity makes or breaks you. Wayne snorted. I see. The point is that he never forgot his own struggles and he pushed his sons to follow his path. That's about the gist of it. Wilhelmina gave a wry smile. I honestly think he meant to make the eldest son his successor in his heart, but my oldest brother would rest on his laurels, refusing to pull himself together, no matter how many times he was admonished. Because of that, he may have refrained from stating his decision in order to try and rouse his firstborn son into action. But he was conked out by the illness before that could happen. Right. It would have been a different story if my oldest brother had realized the errors of his ways and unified the palace, and put the other two in their place. But in reality, the younger pair seized the opportunity to secretly chip away at his political authority, while the eldest became overwhelmed by his duties. Controlling the palace took a back seat for him, but the Emperor gained consciousness once more after that, right? Nim commented. Wilhelmina nodded. Even Natra had received word that the Emperor had recovered. The whole palace let out a sigh of relief when they heard the news. Of course, they were comforted by his improving health, but they hoped it might bring a conclusion to the fight over the throne. He actually called for all of his children, me included. Wilhelmina shook her head, but all that awaited us was a scolding. He expressed his disappointment in his eldest son for failing to unite the palace, and the two others for not managing to oust their brother. He announced that he would be returning to his official duties, and that no one was worthy of becoming his successor. Nim sighed. How foolish. He had a chance to name an heir and put an end to this mess, but he allowed his emotions to get the better of him, and then he passed away, inviting them to continue their fight. My sympathies to the subjects of the Empire. Wayne shrugged. I can see why he might have felt that way. I mean, a strong leader is indispensable, especially to an empire facing rapid expansion. If these brothers of yours are overwhelmed by the troubles in their own palace, it'd be hard to rely on them to deal with foreign relations. Personally, I think you all should shove any old person on the throne at this point. Agreed. Wilhelmina raised her hand, and I think I should take that very seat. Which brings us full circle. Will you help me out? Nim. There's no mention in imperial law that the daughter of an emperor cannot take the throne. She has every right to inherit it. That said, all the successors have been male until this point, and there's a belief among the Empire's people that this tradition should continue on. I know no one of influence within the Empire that will support me. Everyone is courting one of my 3 brothers, and taking no notice of me. That's why I had to call upon old friends. Don't you think this will be entertaining? Totally. Wayne, warned Nim in a shrill voice, her glare boring into Wayne as he nodded eagerly. I know. Back at the academy I could participate in this ordeal, but I'm the Crown Prince of Natra. Based on that alone, I can't agree to this proposal. Are you saying no? You could be the husband of a future empress, you know. Ha ha ha. That's some punishment. Ow! Wayne rubbed his bruised shin. Wilhelmina watched him from her periphery. Well, I never assumed you would agree from the outset. Anyway, we've talked enough. Shall we call it a night? Meaning you've got more tricks up your sleeve to get me to join you. Naturally. I'm not so eccentric that I would travel all the way to the northernmost point of the continent empty-handed. Wayne grinned. Nice. Looking forward to tomorrow, Loa. Wilhelmina flashed a composed smile. Prepare to be wowed. Nim sighed. I knew you two were one and the same. How long had it been since this clandestine meeting in the room began? Fige Blundell fidgeted as she kept guard outside the door, unable to relax. She heard Wilhelmina had been friends with Wayne and Nim at the academy, and allegedly they'd been close with one another. But that was back in their school days. Now they each had a separate position to fulfill, which meant their friendship wouldn't necessarily hold up. Plus, they were two people of the opposite sex and of marrying age, which doubled her concerns. Fly in the moment there's an emergency. Faish kept telling herself she had originally been a diplomat, of course meaning she honestly had no knowledge of the martial arts. As Lowell Mina's attendant, she tried to learn basic forms of self-defense, but the only thing that came from that was Faish realizing the shortcomings of her own athleticism. Her chest was especially a problem. In her diplomat days, her ample assets could be weaponized, but now they swayed too much when she moved around, making them painfully sensitive. They always got in the way. Why they don't do me a solid and get a little smaller, she complained internally. The aide beyond the door would have clicked her tongue in annoyance if she could hear Faish's thoughts. The ex-ambassador suddenly felt the door open behind her and whipped around to see Wayne and Nim leave the room with Lowell Mina seeing them off. A productive evening, Princess. I had a splendid time. Wayne courteously took Lowell Mina's hand. I would speak with you longer if I could. Alas, it's time for even the stars to make their way to bed. I take my leave. I look forward to tomorrow, and hope no one questions you on your return. Take care. No need to worry. There is no one more knowledgeable of the layout of this palace. Wayne let go of Lowell Mina's hand and glanced at Faish. See you around, Lady Blundell. Ah, yes. Faish gave a flustered bow. She may have been the ambassador before. She was nothing more than a simple attendant now, meaning she was in no position to expect the crown prince to address her directly. But that was Wayne, generosity and all. And with Nanim by his side, Wayne took his leave. Lowell Mina called out to her attendant, who watched the pair leave. Faish, any issues during our meeting? No, none at all. I see. Well then, come on in. Yes. Faish surveilled the area once more just to be safe before setting foot in the room. How did the proceedings go, Your Imperial Highness? Just splendid, Lowell Mina replied. All according to our scheme. I told him my plan was to take the throne. Wonderful. In that case, we'll follow through with our little plan and continue our discussions, all to fulfill my true motive. A look of anxiety spread across Faish's profile. After all, she knew the weight of the prince's actual intentions. Will Prince Wayne find out, she asked. Though she'd framed it as a question, Faish already knew the answer, even before hearing Lowell Mina's reply, and the princess had come to the same conclusion. Lowell Mina flashed a composed smile. It's all bluff, Wayne drawled as he sauntered through the empty palace hallway. Lowell Mina had come under the guise of discussing a potential union with Wayne. Her true motive was apparently to get Wayne to help her take the throne, which was also a lie. He could tell there was a hidden third intention she was keeping from them. And your proof? Asked Nanim, walking beside him unfazed, because she sensed the same thing. It's impossible that she has no supporters in the Empire. I mean, she's an unmarried imperial princess, for crying out loud. And she has a legitimate claim to the throne. There's got to be hordes of people taking advantage of the chaos to butter her up. Well, maybe she can't find anyone useful. Anyone wanting to make it big would have sided with one of the princes. And the first place that she went to find backing was Natra? Please. There's no point to that. We're eons away from catching up to the Empire, militarily and politically. It wasn't unusual for trouble to arise over who would become the next ruler. If a civil conversation wasn't enough to resolve a succession crisis, the next logical step was to use military force. But Natra wasn't anything more than an ally to the Empire. It had no power to intervene in its internal politics. They could push for Lowell Mina, but it'd be difficult for them to make any headway. On the other hand, forcibly silencing the three princes was just as unreasonable. There was an obvious difference in strength between Natra and Earthworld. Even if the princes split the power of the Empire into three, Wayne knew he'd never stand a chance. There was no way Loa wouldn't have realized this. In that case, it's an even bigger mystery why she'd pay us a visit. Yeah, but I found a few leads during our chat. Wayne grinned. Leave it to me. I'll expose everything.